Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Caleb Williams is waiting to make his preseason debut because of reasons. Also, we go around the gridiron for some camp updates from our hosts on the ground. And being the starting quarterback at Ohio State just means more.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Bears and the Texans are set to open the preseason for 2024, but we will not be seeing the Bears players that you were so excited to see. Guys like Caleb Williams, we found out this week they are not going to play in this preseason opener. The same week, DJ Moore gets an absolute bag. Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, who always deserves the bag, joins me now. And Lauren, what do you make of this decision for the Bears? Because I did see some Bear fan backlash about this. Like, hey, we want to see Caleb. Why not play him?
Yeah, personally, I think there's not a ton of harm in playing him, even just a little bit. Have him come out for a drive or two, and maybe even just hand the ball off a few times. But I think the Bears look at this as an extra preseason game that they weren't necessarily counting on having anyway. And because it's an extra game, they got to start training camp practice even earlier. So they've had a lot more practices under their belt to get a better sense of how much Caleb Williams really needs to be out there. And I think they're pretty confident with, 3 remaining preseason games being enough time for that. And that, the Hall of Fame game is going to be such a kind of a backup fest anyway, that how much value is Caleb really getting out there? I mean, I think it would be worthwhile for him, but I get it. I don't think it's too much to be upset about.
Speaking of things not to be upset about, DJ Moore reaches the largest Bears extension in franchise history, 4 years, $110 million. I feel like I need to go full Dr. Evil on this one. But he was in an offense that was, as you watched every week, Lauren, and probably multiple times with all 22, kind of a disaster at times, especially in the passing game. DJ Moore was one of the few bright spots, a top 5 receiver by ESPN receiver score. And yet I'm not sure he gets the credit nationally that he deserves. For those who aren't familiar with his game, sell them on why he's worth this kind of extension.
Yeah, you talk about a Bears offense last season that didn't have a lot to really like. He still finished with 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. I mean, he is in the prime of his career at 27 years old. They locked him in, adding 4 years to a deal that already had 2 on it. So he's lined up nicely with Caleb Williams' rookie contract. Like, this is the time to pay a wide receiver up to this level to say, yes, we value you and we want you here for the duration of this kid's contract. Plus, he can mentor Rome Odunze along the way throughout this process. And they really locked him in at an affordable price here. It's the 4 years, $110 million is about $27.5 million a year, which is not near, it's not at the top of the wide receiver market, right? He wasn't trying to reset the market, wasn't trying to push Justin Jefferson or anything like that. It's a number that a couple of years from now, I think is going to keep looking really good as we see CeeDee Lamb wants $30 million plus a year. Brandon Ayuk is in those sort of conversations. That he came in less than Amon-Ra St. Brown and some of these other receivers that just got new deals this offseason. So it was the way for the Bears to reward a guy who played really well from them, who they expect to be big part of their long-term plans, but get it in ahead of market price. So I think it's going to continue to be a good value for them over the duration of the contract.
Yeah, whenever you saw any of the Justin Fields highlights, and big scare quotes for me, they really ended up being DJ Moore highlights more often than not. Like all those that in the snow, was that against the Falcons? Like he made just ridiculous catch after ridiculous catch. The last one I want to throw at you here, Lauren, Devin Hester goes into the Hall of Fame along with Julius Peppers, but not synonymous with the Bears the way Devin Hester is. And I'll just tell you from a Packers perspective, I've been following this team since the early 90s. The only Bears player who has ever truly struck fear into the heart of this Packer fan is Devin Hester. What will you remember about his career?
I don't think I would be hosting the Locked On Bears podcast if not for Devin Hester. Like, wow, he came into the NFL at a time when I was just getting into football and was sort of like a young, impressionable lad, not to date myself specifically, but like I fell in love with this sport in 2006 with his rookie season and watching him take kickoffs and punt returns back, and of course, all the way, to the Super Bowl. Like that was so like such a high impact on my formative years of understanding football. Like I fell in love with special teams, and he's like the player that I fell in love with first in this sport. I mean, he's just special. Every time he touched the ball, they say that like, oh, every time he touches the ball, he's a threat to score. And that wasn't always true on offense. We usually talk about it with a running back or a wide receiver, but like on every single kick return, if you kicked it to Hester, you thought, oh, he might do something with this one. Like it was really hard to ever have any confidence giving him the ball. He changed the way teams played special teams against him. And given the ways, maybe with the new rule change, we could see another Devin Hester again someday, but we'll see if the rule change actually gets us there. Because as the rules currently stand in the last decade or so, I don't know that we would ever see another player do what Devin did.
Stay up to date all year on the Chicago Bears by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bears on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, there are a couple of NFL training camp stories to keep an eye on. Before we get to that, Katie Ledecky is redefining what it means to be great at swimming. Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts, it's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for basketball, football, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app, and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. That's code Locked On with $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. The Olympic Committee should just rename the 1,500-meter race the Ledecky. She has not one, not two, not three, but the 20 fastest times in the event. Seriously. In case you've missed it, much of the 1,500-meter race has been her beating everyone by at least 20 seconds. Many times she'll be swimming one way while everyone is swimming the other direction just to catch up. Incredible is an inadequate word to describe her. She is one of the greatest Olympians in U.S. history. On the diamond, the Pirates gave the Astros all they could handle on Wednesday night.
The way it started, you were like, you know what? I really wish we would have got a bat. Or, I think every time a Pirates player did something good, someone on X was
Brian
like,
McTaggart kept on saying, maybe we should have traded for Michael Taylor. Maybe we should have traded for Joey Bart. I saw that.
But yeah, I mean, look, outside of that one inning, Fromber was fine. Okay. And, we'll talk about Kikuchi here in a second and Ferguson, because I think there were some interesting things that Mr. Ferguson had to say about being here in Houston, Texas. But it's a good win. You need this going into a day off. You needed this today because the Seattle Mariners lost. Both the Mariners and the Rangers lost. So you had to gain ground because, the schedule – again, we are going to be officially, if you're listening to this on Thursday, it's officially August. Once we get into August, kids, that is the dog days. And on, August 2nd, we actually start a series against the Rays. Now, the Rays may not be world beaters, but they just made some trades. And I don't know if you saw this, Chris Morel, in his first pinch hit at bat as a Ray, hit a home run. From what I understand, in Chicago, he was not very well treated by the media. He was not having a good year. He didn't have much surrounding him. And I think in the next 2 years, you're going to see Chris Morel really blossom in Tampa.
And the Padres poured in the scoring against Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers.
This series, we didn't record after Tuesday night's game because we had just done the post-trade deadline episode that was all happy because Dodgers had a really good trade deadline. And then two really lousy games. In the first game of the series on Tuesday, The Dodgers went up 5-0 in the first inning. They didn't score again. The Padres scored 5 and then scored a 6th one in the 10th inning to win the game. The third time in the last few weeks, the Dodgers have blown a 5-run lead. And then I guess the bright side on Wednesday, they didn't blow a 5-run lead because they only scored 1 run and went down early. It was just a dumb series. But I feel like the main story today is Clayton Kershaw. His MLB record streak of 423 consecutive starts with at least 1 strikeout came to an end. He just didn't have any swing and miss today. Didn't get help from his defense, didn't help himself on defense, but also didn't help himself by not being able to get any swing and miss. And the Padres are a very good contact hitting team, but I don't think that's all that was at play in this game.
Yeah, it's, now 2 of the last 3 times we've seen Clayton Kershaw pitch in the major leagues has been times where he didn't have any swing and miss, didn't get help from his defense. And, this just kind of had that. Now you kind of look back at the Giants start and think, okay, are the Giants that bad on offense? Was Kershaw that bad today? And you kind of try to piece together how you feel about it. And I think for me, it's one of those where, and we'll get into the bigger point late in a little bit right now, but I don't think he's done. I don't think he's ready right now. Realistically, if they had a healthy rotation, he probably would this would have been his last rehab start. Realistically, he might, he only threw 2 when he came back after the setback. He probably would have thrown at least 2 more. That'll give him, close to a spring training type. And then he could have joined the team. And, I don't know if it's a matter of that really matters. It realistically, the stuff is okay if he could locate it, but he can't locate the fastball. His slider is not as sharp and missing location. So, it's a little bit of that. So I genuinely don't know if it's a matter of the stuff is gone, not fully, but the stuff is gone, or he's just a little risky.
Most teams have the pads on now at training camp, and that breeds plenty of storylines, like in Colts camp, where Alec Pierce showed out.
Day 5 of Indianapolis Colts training camp, and it was another beautiful day out here. Anthony Richardson did his thing, throwing deep. Rookie Anthony Gould had a couple nice plays, but the stars of the show, Alec Pierce and Julian Blackmon. This was easily Pierce's best training camp performance of the season, and comes at an important time when everyone's talking about his battle with A.D. Mitchell. Now, Pierce made big play after big play, the biggest one coming on about a 50-yard bomb down the right sideline from Joe Flacco. Pierce had to kind of contort himself and caught the ball in between 2 defenders as he fell to the ground. Really impressive stuff. Otherwise, with Julian Blackmon, he is stacking days, showing that he is just a critical piece of the secondary. Had another big deep pass breakup today against Alec Pierce. So we got more on that today on Locked On Colts on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Everyone's excited about this Colts team in 2024. Alec Pierce could be a fantasy football name to watch. The Cowboys wide receivers are getting plenty of reps while CeeDee Lamb is negotiating a new deal.
Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and this is your training camp update for Wednesday, July 31st. As the Cowboys continue to kind of work through contract negotiations with CeeDee Lamb, his down roster wide receiver teammates are wasting no time in Oxnard, kind of getting chemistry, using the reps, obviously vacated by CeeDee in his absence, to get some good work in with Dak, and a whole bunch of them had touchdowns today. Jalen Tolbert had 2, Jalen Brooks had 1, Turpin had 1, Brandon Cooks had 1, all in various different periods, including 7-on-7 goal line and some other periods. So the Cowboys wasting no time and using these extra reps to kind of build chemistry with some of the down roster guys, being used in different ways. You saw a really cool touchdown to Turpin on a seam route from outside of the 20-yard line. So the Cowboys doing what they can to kind of mix in the group of receivers that they have available to them to see if they can get some chemistry with Dak Prescott heading into the season. For more on this, check us out on the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
And the Saints had an important name back in the fold.
It was another day of defensive standouts and unfortunately injuries for the New Orleans Saints. I'm Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast. New Orleans Saints here in Irvine, California, just wrapped up day 7 of their training camp, their 3rd straight padded practice with a day off coming tomorrow. First big update for you is that Chris Olave was back on the field and participated fully in everything all throughout the day. Team drills, individual drills, all of it. But the other things to take a look at, more injuries for this team. Wide receivers Cedric Wilson and Bub Means both not available for today's practice, dealing with some injuries of their own. You also had Tommy Hudson, New Orleans Saints tight end, as well as star player on the defensive side. This is a big one. Demario Davis leaving practice early with a hamstring injury. So again, the injuries continue to pile up. But even without Demario Davis, this was the defense's day out here on the field. Several sacks, pressures, and even another interception by Roderick Cheemer, lifting this New Orleans Saints defense to the top of the competition today. For more, make sure you check out Locked On Saints.
Coming up, being the starting quarterback at Ohio State just means more. Every school has a quarterback, but no school is a more high-profile spot for a starting quarterback than Ohio State. At least that's what Locked On Buckeyes host Jay Stevens wants you to think.
Everybody has a starting quarterback, and there's some schools out there that think, well, their starting quarterback job is more important than anybody else's. They're wrong. It doesn't get much better than being a starting quarterback at The Ohio State University. And once again, for back-to-back off seasons, Ohio State has a quarterback battle during fall camp. Last year went into the regular season. I hope it doesn't happen this year. I don't think Ryan Day wants that to happen this year, which means there's one guy on the team that can earn that title during fall camp. I don't know which one guy will actually win it. Will Howard might do it. Devin Brown might do it. Julian Sand might do it. I think those are the three guys that have the shot to earn the title of QB1.
Look, it seems pretty great to be the quarterback at Ohio State. Seems pretty awesome. But it would be pretty great at any number of blue blood programs. It seems like it would be pretty awesome to be the starting quarterback in Tuscaloosa, to be the Alabama starting quarterback. Pretty prestigious, even if the NFL success hasn't always been there. But by the way, also is true with the Ohio State quarterbacks. It seems like it would be pretty cool to be the USC starting quarterback in Southern California. Pretty good track record of famous people. Seeming like that would be pretty fun to do that. LSU, are you kidding me? To be the LSU quarterback in Baton Rouge, in that environment, on that campus with those fans. If I were going to pick to be the quarterback at any place, just for how awesome it seems like it would be, I think I'm picking LSU. Ohio State would be on the list, but it would have to be a long list before I would get to Ohio State, like 10. And finally, we were all in awe of Americans women's rugby, their historic game-winning conversion to secure Team USA its first ever medal in the sport. Michelle Kang was especially impressed. Kang, who owns the Washington Spirit, wanted to show her support and help Team USA in their pursuit of gold for 2028. She made a $4 million donation to the program. When Team USA sets its mind to something, in most sports, it usually works out. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on Friday, we have football to react to. It's been a long time since we could say that. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.